Hey viewers, one of the viewers, Old Man Blue, he wanted me to do a video on more specifics about my rocket stove, my J-tube rocket stove. So this one's for you, Old Man Blue. All right, so here's the stove. All right, and the reason we know why it's called the J-tube because it's shaped like a J. But the ones I build, I try to make them extremely efficient. You guys know me, I want to make everything efficient. So sorry about the shaking camera there. Get this straightened out. But yes, I like to make everything pretty efficient. But so I added these little half pieces of angle iron here, so I can just take one of these tubes here, put it in there, use it like a handle. So I'm gonna pick it up, put it on my table here. All right, so the rocket stove. This is 4-inch. Actually, it's 3-inch tubing, and so it's 3-inch tubing. And what we have here is I like to use the ratio of like 1, 2, 3, or at least I like to make my burn chamber twice as long as my feed tube and my heat riser 3 times as long as my feed tube. So on this one, my feed tube is 8 inches. This is about 13 inches. And this is 20 inches. So my measurements aren't exact the way I just explained them, but the most important thing is you really want your heat riser to be 2 to 3 times taller than your feed tube because you want the heat to rise. And if you got these around the same height, you're going to get air sucked in through here. This is going to smoke and it's not going to work right. So the other thing that I use is I set my rocket stoves up to be either wood burning or pellet burning. And in order to do that, I make these little pellet baskets. Now, the American pellet is 1/4 of an inch in diameter. So this is a 3/16 inch stainless steel bar that I've twisted and bent. I bent to the shape that I need to allow for the pellets to drop through and feed. But here you want at least 3/16 of a space in between these bars, because that'll give the 1/4 inch pellet enough time to burn down to about 3/16 or less, and then they'll drop through. And once they drop through, the pellet will fall on, and I'll let you see it here in a minute. And I'll just dropped it on the ground. So I have this little piece of expanded metal here, and let you see that. And this expanded metal acts as my secondary burn rack. So the pellet will drop down on here, and most times, you'll get about 8 to 10, between 5 and 10 pellets will drop at one time. You don't just drop one at a time. You'll get like 5 or 10 of them drop, and they'll create enough area and blockage here so that they won't just fall straight through. They'll fall onto this rack, and they'll keep burning. Thus, the definition of secondary burn. Also, on my pellet stoves, I like to do a let me zoom Get you close down here. This is my secondary burn chamber. On all my pellet stoves, I try to make sure I build one of these. So the pellet will fall into there and it will continue to burn and turn into ash. Hopefully you can see down in there a little bit. But it'll fall into there and it'll continue to burn until it just turns into ash. So, and the way this works is I have a hole cut right in there. Trying to get you a little closer. Trying to work with this tripod is just not agreeing with me here. Let me turn it into a selfie stick. So, I have a hole right inside there. I'll put my finger in there, you can see it. You probably see my finger in there. But so yeah, I put that little expanded metal right on top of that, on top of this surface. So I'll put my expanded metal right in here, right over the hole. Then my pellet basket, you want the pellet basket with this, it's about a 60-degree angle. You want that angle facing outward, and you want the straight side here, this side here, right here. You want this side towards the back of your feed tube. So I'll put the pellet basket in like this. Show you from the side. So I'll put the pellet basket in like this. And it drops right down onto the secondary burn rack. And that stops it from going through. And I really need some light in there. I need some light so you can see a little better. But there's the secondary burn rack in there. So that's how I set it up, and you should be able to see the pellet basket in there. And let me give you some dimensions on that. So it's not all the way down, so let me get it down. There we go. Sorry about that noise. So there. Now that distance between the pellet basket and the secondary burn rack is very important. And for me, on a 3-inch, that's about 3/4 of an inch. All right. All right. So the distance from here to here is about 3/4 of an inch. And that allows the air, 3/4 of an inch, that allows the air to come into the inlet here, and it'll hit this area, swoop down, go right up under the pellet basket, feeding the fire and causing the fire to just burn up the burn tube and go up the heat riser. And so I use stainless steel rods because they're more durable and they last longer. And the way I make these is I built myself a little rod bender. And I take this and I'll just kind of get some vice grips and hold it down to the table. And basically what it does is You can probably look at it, those of you mechanically inclined folks out there. Just kind of put your rod in there. I was gonna try and bend this down, but once it's bent down, you oh, I'm sorry, this is in the wrong hole. Oops. So you put your rod in there, and you measure off. Hope you can see that. You measure off where you want to make your bends, and once this is held down, you can just bend it. You bend your rod at the angle you want, move it, you bend it at the other angle. And that's just a little 1/8 inch piece of rod that I use for something else. But here's some rods that I'm making for another project that I've bent for another project on a rocket stove that I'm using. So I'm going to show you guys that once I'm done. But so I cut all my rods to size, and then I mark them and I bend them. And I think this project is going to take about 10 of those. And these are easy to build. What you just get you some flat stock, drill you a couple of holes in it. This is I think 3/8 inch bar. And I didn't drill these down because I wanted a little bit more strength. But so I kind of left this little nub up a little bit. And these are about 1.5 inches long. But I drilled some holes in there, put my rods in there, welded it on the back. Did the same thing for this, but I just left a hole open. Now I did sand this one down because I needed to run smoothly over the other piece. So yeah, you just drill your holes, put your rods in there, weld them in place, and you got yourself a rod bender. And it makes easy, quick work of bending those rods. Now, pellet stoves, to me, pellet stoves are easy to build, but the important thing is you got to get the proper airflow. If you don't get the proper airflow, it's not going to get hot enough, and it's not going to be able to. You won't be able to cook efficiently. You won't be able to heat efficiently. Nothing works right. So I always try to make my pellet stoves, whereas my air inlet is about 80% the size of my air outlet, my heat riser. And so that way, more air is being forced into and going by my burn box or my feed tube, going over the pellets or going over the wood, and it's kind of rushing in there, and that creates that rocket sound. That's something I learned in building these rocket stoves. I've built J-tube, I've built the regular, I guess it's the K type. I got one over there that I'll show you in a minute, but you want that air inlet to be a little bit smaller than the exhaust, and that'll create that rocket effect. All right. Oh, one more thing. Another thing you want to make your rocket stove more efficient and burn hotter is secondary air intake. And here's what I do for that. Turn this light off. All right. My secondary intake, I use these little 1/2 inch tubing. All right. 1/2 inch tube. And if you look at my rocket stove, I'll try to stick 2 of them in there and this 1/2 inch tube fits right up under my pellet basket. So I'll put one in there, right there, and if you can see, let me get the light turned around. That should be better. So I'll put one, I'll shove them in right here at the back of the air inlet. Stick them in there on the bottom, and I'll put one right here, and you can see where it stops. Right, that's the short one. And then I'll get another one, and I'll stick it in, and you see how far it goes up there? It goes all the way up to where the fire gets ready to go up the heat riser. Secondary air intakes bring in that extra amount of oxygen to cause secondary combustion and allows all the gases to burn. So it also creates zero smoke. And the reason I put these inside the burn chamber is you want the air to heat up. Once the air is hot and it comes out the other end, boom, instant combustion. And it just creates that secondary burn. And that's why on that first video I made, you saw my fire coming up at least 12 inches outside of my heat riser. Because I had these two secondary burns inlets, secondary air inlets inside my burn tube. So there you have it. Old Man Blue, I hope that was helpful. Like I said, any questions, just put it in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them. And remember, people, treat people the way you want them to treat you and not the way they treat you. All right? See you next time.